Fast forward, you need to more our channel so I'll say AGH Politics Avenue. Podcast also trending because making headlines near Jembre, na EDB Exmo, na yebo Eura, a Deputy Attorney General Asway, na a Buffer Stock CEO, Omo Echenono, Unia, former Attorney General, a Godfread yebo Odame Ababon Tenso, Abe Kansim be brave, Eddie Afa a Attorney General Office home, say Omo. Weaponize a arrest na omo amfa mrakwan so na omo esan editini omo client no ana client no na ohun say torture. Deputy Attorney General just a slim size ababontin so abe every battle based on nsema former Attorney General ekan na Mr. say mo ransom nim na yenhwe ne yakọ ane de ba.
No fresh evidence. What's your response?
How would he know? You see, instead of him to accompany his clients to do interrogation, through the interrogation, he's sitting on TV, calling to radio programs and talking. But his client will be going for interrogation today. He was discharged yesterday. He'll be going for interrogation today. That is when he will know. If he chooses not to be on radio and follow him, he will definitely know where the fresh evidence. He has no basis to know whether there's fresh evidence or not because he has not accompanied his client to the office of.
And another thing he says is that he was denied access. Exactly. He says they were denied access, but you were saying that they didn't come. So what exactly is
that? Is false. That is false. Completely false. His client was not well and was taking the clinic yesterday. When they came back, the interrogators were waiting for him to come because you cannot interrogate a suspect in the absence of his lawyer. And we know the accused person had lawyers. So it is fair and right and the proper thing to do to wait for the lawyers to come. He was nowhere to be found.
He said his junior doctors, lawyers, I must say, sat at the IOCO's headquarters, waiting for them to be, interrogated. But you didn't give him that access.
That is hearsay. He is claiming that. And I am telling you that most of the time yesterday was spent waiting for him and his lawyers to come, and he never showed up. I think it was the same time that he was on TV and radio granting interviews. And I think that, you see, there should be some basic principles with which all of us work. Because I've had personal conversation with him on the day we withdrew the charges, and he made specific requests, some of which have been granted.
What are those requests?
This is a professional conversation, and I wouldn't want to disclose, and I think it's client. So I expect him to respect the confidence I have with him as a former Attorney General and the conversation we had. And one of the requests is still pending. You can ask him when he chooses to. You can ask him.
Are you frustrated? What's the status of this fresh evidence you talk about? And when are we likely to see fresh charges being preferred against
So let me take you through the
Hanan?
process. You cannot just come to court when you have fresh evidence in a criminal trial.
Right.
And start throwing in the evidence.
That's what I'm asking about the status.
So you need to first interrogate and hear from the accused person in respect of those new, fresh evidence that you've gathered. That will inform your final decision whether to go ahead and charge the person or not. But to say that fresh evidence is not available merely because you don't have it is completely on improper and unethical.
One thing that he also said is that you are abusing the process because during his time, the way and manner his persons were being treated is not the same way.
Those of you who were in court, when we were withdrawing the charges, he was on our side. He even told the judge that he is familiar, he did a lot of withdrawals. To the extent that even the co-accused counsel was talking to the two of us and said that we were politicians and he is a professional lawyer. So in the courtroom, he understood and did not object to anything that happened. I was surprised for him when I saw him on radio and TV making it look like he wasn't. In fact, the other counsel was actually pointing to the two of us that, yes, we were politicians and he is not, so he has the right to complain. And he was telling the other lawyer not to complain because this is normal. So to come out and make it, and in any case, haven't we seen, has he not done this before? Is it improper to withdraw charges when you discover new evidence? And he's trying to lump these up together.
Now, a section of stakeholders are calling for a review of their 5-day period for writing 10 subjects. That's another issue. You have 10 subjects that these pupils have to sit within a 5-day period because it places excessive pressure on the students, whereas others also maintain that the extension may not necessarily solve the root of the problem as we're dealing with. But first, on the matter of the examination malpractice, here's an official of WAEC. When they visited some centers in Accra, they got to know how the students themselves who are sitting for the exam have also devised other means of engaging in examination malpractice. A classic case involving twins. They had swapped their papers, and one was writing for the other who didn't know too much of what was being asked in the exams. Take a look.
There were 4 students. 2 of them were twins, and they have exchanged their answer booklets. And one was writing for the other. And then the other pair, they have exchanged their question papers. And in their question papers, they've written solutions to some of the questions in them. So we will take it up and do further investigations, and the sanctions will be, if they are found culpable, their subjects will be cancelled.
So that's what's going to be happening. They're going to investigate quite a number of these cases, but that's for the students. We've been focusing on the vigilators themselves as well. As of Tuesday, there are 19 supervisors and vigilators who had been arrested for their involvement in examination malpractice across 6 regions. And these are the regions where the invigilators were implicated for their involvement in examination malpractice: Ashanti, Eastern, Central, Bono, Western, and then Greater Accra region. Kofi Asare is the Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch. Kofi, good evening. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. First of all, I want to find out from you, from the student perspective, we've seen them also devising ways to get around the system. Examination malpractice has been with us over the years. We've seen some measures by previous education ministers to bring in the security agencies, then BNI getting involved and so on. Now, we're seeing a new trend of either students swapping their twins and so on. Maybe it's been going on and we are just getting to know of it. But listening to an education minister who spoke to us yesterday, there's a thinking of what can be done because they don't even know what is motivating these invigilators to do this. What should be the thinking going forward?
Well, I don't think this is new. It's an old practice. It's only new because it's come to the fore. I keep saying that WAEC has limitations in terms of the deployment of its own personnel. So it relies heavily on third-party actors from the juniors, whether supervisors or invigilators. So WAEC is unable to be at even 20% of our centers at the same time, because we have about 2,300 centers. So if WAEC is able to, chance on things like this, then it tells you that, in deprived areas where it's difficult to commute or monitor BECE, and I'm talking about WAEC officials, these things are common, and indeed the reality is that these are very, very common tricks. So the malpractice is, as we say, a subculture. It is not an outlier, except that the system has deficiencies in physically identifying them because of the limited deployment to monitor. I'm talking about limited external deployment to monitor. It is not just an issue of some teachers demanding money from students and promising to assist them. But when it comes to BECE specifically, because the choice of school is at stake, mind you, that BECE is only relevant today because of school placement. Because the choice of school is at stake, and learners at the junior high school level are very, 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 fussy about the choice of school or the school they want to go. Some may go an extra, length to do anything possible, including what we just saw, to pass and get to the school of their choice. It requires a lot of education, including moral education, not just in the school environment, because these tendencies actually, may have, emerged from the house. So the student spends more time at home than in school. So it will require more education and moral education from both the household and then the school environment to imbibe into students the essence of integrity when it comes to assessment and also life in general.
But you see, you're talking about this starting from home, but we've seen a number of instances, and you've been involved in this, where the parents who are the leaders at home are actually the ones who are leading the process of paying for exam answers and so on.
That's the point. That's the point. Because in all this, this examination of practice thing, it's transactional. And you'll agree with me that, between 300 and 1,000 cedis being paid in some schools from BECE to WASI, those funds are not funds that students or learners can easily come by. Having mobile phones in the examination hall at the junior high school level just to ensure that answers are transmitted to you. Those are not, easy costs that one who is not working can actually shoulder. And so evidence available indicates that behind every organized examination or practice, especially institutionalized collection in schools, there is, a parental support in the name of what a BECE support fee. Parents themselves know that the fee they are paying is, ominous, but they still go ahead and pay. And so that's why I was quick to say that the household factors play a lot more into this than even the school factors, because the demand is more or less from the household. And so far as the demand is there, they are ready to commit funds. Supply will emerge from the school because some bad teachers also just want the cash. And then, so both sides, their responsibilities to shoulder when it comes to re-engineering the psyche of our students, to appreciate integrity.
Education system and what recommendations that you're making right now. And I want to get into that because that's an issue as well that some have expressed some divergent views on as to what should not be the case based on the recommendations that you have made. You said rethinking the structure and relevance of the BECE in the era of free SHS. Now, you're talking about candidates typically needing at least aggregate 35 to gain admission, and less than 65% were meeting this threshold. In effect, BECE functioned as a screening exam that separated those who passed to progress to secondary school from those who did not. Now, we've seen free SHS being introduced. About 98% of candidates qualify annually for secondary education. And you said candidates with aggregate 54 are all in school. True? BECE, they score aggregate 54 and they are in secondary school?
Alfred, the reality is that BECE is no longer relevant in determining whether one qualifies to go to secondary school. In the past, decades ago, until 2017, to be precise, BECE was instrumental in more or less determining whether you qualify to proceed to second cycle education. So it was what we call a second cycle entrance examination. That was the first essence of BECE. Then it was also a school placement examination, which went further after clearing that you qualify to proceed to second cycle. The result was used to determine which category of school you qualify to be placed in. So these were the two main functions of BECE. Now, and then you had to obtain up to aggregate 35, to qualify to assess second cycle. And then beyond the 35, your actual grade would determine the kind of school you are likely to attend. But since free senior high school was introduced, cutoffs were removed. Immediately the cutoffs were removed, essentially, it meant that the first function is moot. It means that everyone who writes BECE is qualified to go to secondary school. And that is the norm in all countries implementing free secondary education in Africa.
So in effect, you're saying that the BECE should be done away with if that first function of it pruning the numbers to second is off now.
Now, if that first function is off, the second function is the only leg which BECE is standing on. And indeed, BECE's only relevance since 2018 has been to determine who goes to Presec, from who goes to Benkum, from who goes to Canton Senior High School. That's the only relevance. And so the point we've been making since 2023, as a matter of fact, is that if at the time when BECE was bifocal, serving two purposes, it was designed in such a way that you write a high stakes examination in up to 10 papers. Why do we still have to maintain that same form if BECE is no longer serving the purpose of secondary school entrance examination, but it's only being used to determine who goes to a category A school or a category B school? Because in other countries, for instance, they use aptitude tests and then continuous assessment to determine who goes to a category A school, a category B school. But that exercise is not one that requires ascertaining one's proficiency in every subject. And so the point we are making is that as the relevance of BECE has changed and now hinges on only its school placement function, we must also review the form of BECE to reflect the only remaining relevance, which is
relevance of it. I see, and beyond the question of the structure, you make a recommendation, and you are asking a question that because of the shift in relevance now, why do candidates still sit 10 subjects over a 5-day period for what is essentially a placement exercise? So what's the recommendation in here? I mean, because now, yes, the students are sitting for 10 subjects over 5 days. Are you talking about an extension of the days or a total review of this entire structure?
So doing 10 subjects is virtually a proficiency test, and that's not the essence, okay? Because we are only determining, you only want to know, determine who goes to a category A school, a category B school. That is not a proficiency test, which is not an examination. It is not an secondary education entrance examination either. And so we are recommending that it is important to maintain the core subject as standalone, especially maths, English, and science. So let's maintain them and assess them as they are. But for the rest of the subjects, let's make them into a general paper, which will contain relevant sections so that no one will say, I'm not going to learn this subject, I'm going to learn only this.
Right.
So that we encourage learning. So that we're going to have 4 papers. Now, if we have 4 papers being written to determine who goes to category A or category B, then we reduce the number of days we spend in writing BECE from the current 6 to maybe 3. Right. If we are able to do it 3, government will not be spending 200 million a year on BECE. It could be even half of the amount. It will also reduce the length of time we spend and also the stress level. Absolutely. These are conversations we want to trigger. There are various ideas around this, which we welcome. But the whole idea is that we can't maintain the BECE, which was serving as an entrance examination to second cycle education and school placement. And today, we can't maintain the same form as it is because it is high stakes, and no one in this world uses high stake examination just for the purpose of school placement. It's too bad.
And it's revealing if you're talking about aggregate 54 student also being in senior high school.
Everybody's good. Everybody's qualified.
So now you don't even have to get a particular grade.
The reality is that, Alfred, if you read the MPP's manifesto of 2024, and we had engagement with political parties on this issue in 2024, MPP suggests
we ain't some who team course or channel so my man was so jembre. That's it. Say obadi ndia dumbi edumini. You be sure na yasanya some question also.